much, everyone, and I'm delighted to be here, and also even more delighted to be representing the female plant-based doctors here. You can read about me in the programme because we've got lots to crack on with, so I'll make a start. So what I'm hoping to cover today is how diet and lifestyle contributes to cancer development, how to reduce your risk of cancer, how to improve survival after a cancer diagnosis, and what are the current recommendations for cancer prevention. So just as a background, we know that cancer is the top cause of premature death in the UK, and that, as Tom has already said, is death less than the age of 70. And probably 1 in 2 of all of us now will get cancer at some point in our life, and more than 50% of these cancers are made up by lung, breast, prostate and colon cancer, which I'll use as examples as we go through. And at best, our genetic makeup contributes 10% or less to this risk of cancer. And Cancer Research UK and other international organisations tell us that 40% or more of cancers are preventable through lifestyle choices. And these are the main lifestyle factors that are implicated. So smoking we all know about and accept, but second to that is an unhealthy diet, being overweight. I do have opinions on alcohol, which I'll get to, unhealthy sun exposure and lack of physical activities. So when you think about cancer development, it's really thought about in 3 phases. The initial phase is happening all the time when you've got constant DNA damage, but your cells repair themselves. But now and again, a cell may not repair and remain damaged, and then during this long phase of cancer promotion, it can either expand and divide and result in clinically apparent cancer, or it can just stay dormant. And what we do to ourselves, to our lifestyle choices, is very important in whether this phase happens or not. And then later you get cancer progression when it's clinically apparent and it's metastasizing, and it's much more difficult to do something about. So there is a large body of evidence supporting diet and lifestyle interventions in cancer prevention. And I'll try and talk through some of these different types of studies, but only to say is that the strength of evidence is very strong. We have observational data, we have mechanistic data, we have evidence from randomized control studies, and then lately we have national and international consensus. So just going over the observational data to start with. So of course this is the weakest type of data, but these observations have been made for over a century, that really cancer is more prevalent in societies that eat the most meat. We've been saying this since 1892. But more recently, we've got stronger evidence from prospective cohort studies, and the 2 notable ones that had large numbers of plant-based eaters, so vegetarians and vegans, are the Adventist Health Studies from Loma Linda in California and the EPIC Oxford. And both of these large prospective groups have got about a third of participants being lacto-vegetarian or vegan. There's also a Taiwanese prospective group as well, but I can't talk about all of the studies. But from the EPIC Oxford study and the Adventist Health Study, the summation of these data show us that those that eat more plant-based diets have in the range of about 8 to 19% reduction in risk of all cancers, and then a higher reduction of risk, particularly in vegans, for female-specific cancers like ovarian and endometrial and breast, and prostate cancer in men. And if we look at non-vegan groups, so this is data from the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study, just published at the end of last year, they looked at over 170,000 men and women and looked at lifestyle factors. And the 5 factors they looked at were smoking, being a healthful weight, a healthy diet, physical activity, and moderate intakes of alcohol. And when they scored the diet, you got high scores for fruits, vegetables, whole grain, unsaturated fats from plants, and omega-3 fats, which can obviously be from fish or from plant sources. And then you got negative marks for all the foods that we know are less helpful. And what this showed was the more healthy lifestyle factors you had at the age of 50, the longer you lived. So if you had all 5 healthful factors, men lived 12 years longer and women 14 years longer. But this is what it told us about cancer mortality. So the best score in the diet gave you a 30% reduction in the chances of dying from cancer. And if you had all 5 healthy lifestyle factors, you had a 65% reduction in dying from cancer. And just as a slight digression, does it matter whether your plants and your fruits and vegetables are organic or non-organic? And the jury isn't out yet, but the data are compelling. And this is a study from France, the Nutrisanti cohort, and this confirms or agrees with data from the Million Women study that took place in Britain. And what it does suggest is that eating more organic food, there is an overall reduction in cancer risk, particularly for menopausal breast cancer, but also for non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which will make sense when I go over some mechanisms in a moment. So when you put all this data together in meta-analysis and look at the summation of the information we have, this meta-analysis from 2012 showed an 18% lower overall risk of cancer in vegetarians, and then a more recent meta-analysis from 2017 shows that vegans have a 15% reduction in cancer mortality and also these other favourable outcomes in chronic disease. And as we've heard all day, our diet choices are very important in predicting whether we get chronic disease. And chronic disease, because of the shared mechanisms of inflammation and oxidative stress that we've heard about, also contribute to our risk of cancer. So this was a Taiwanese cohort of over 400,000 people followed for 8 years. And those with the most chronic diseases, with the least healthful lifestyle factors, had a vastly increased risk of dying of cancer. So the cancer mortality, nearly 40% of it was contributed to by the fact that they had chronic diseases. And again, it's not about plants versus animal foods, it's about the quality of the food that we're eating and the overall pattern. And this again is from the French cohort, the Nutrisanti cohort, that showed us that eating processed foods also increased our risk of cancer. And this is ultra-processed foods that are far removed from the original ingredients that went in to make it. And as we've heard, in the UK population at least, more than 55% of the products that we're putting into our shopping basket are ultra-processed. So what are the mechanisms by which our diet and lifestyle impact on risk of cancer? Well, we can use some general observations about chronic disease, and these mechanisms are shared by all diseases, and the impact of our lifestyle results in these shared mechanisms. So dyslipidemia or lipotoxicity, the intracellular, intramyocyte lipids that we heard about today, the oxidative stress, inflammation, unhealthy gut bacteria, and then abnormal cell growth all together lead to the chronic diseases we've been talking about. But in contrast, a whole food plant-based diet mitigates many of these risks. They're low calorie and so help maintain a healthful weight. They're high in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds. You avoid carcinogens on the whole by concentrating on whole plant foods. You maintain a healthy gut microbiome that's diverse and full of bacteria that are going to be producing short-chain fatty acids. And you improve your hormone profile. So when we think about reasons for the increase in cancer incidence and its link with lifestyle, one of the biggest impacts is from our weight, and we know that obesity has reached epidemic proportions, and it's predicted by 2035 that 4 in 10 adults will be obese. Being obese or overweight has been associated with 13 different types of cancer now. And again, going back to diet pattern, it's clear from the EPIC cohort, from the Adventist Health Study, which these data are from, and the Nurses Health Study, that the more animal products you eat, the heavier you are in weight, and really the only healthful weight throughout life is obtained by eating predominantly plant-based diets. And the mechanisms by which obesity contributes to cancer development are these. So firstly, there's increased hormone production by the fat cells, and that's predominantly estrogen, and it's been implicated in female-predominant cancers. There's production of other growth factors like insulin and insulin-like growth factor, which I'll come back to. And in general, obesity is an inflammatory state. So you have production of cytokines which encourage the growth of cells. So meat-based diets obviously expose us to carcinogens, and in 2015 the WHO informed us that the data was strong enough to call processed meat a group 1 carcinogen and red meat a group 2 carcinogen. So processed meat actually causes cancer. 20% of bowel cancers are caused by the consumption of processed meat, and it's also implicated in other cancer types as well, but predominantly we're talking about colorectal cancer here. And so why do we believe that they are carcinogenic? Well, firstly, we've heard about heme iron, which in the gut gets converted into nitrosamines, which is a carcinogen. It's also implicated in creating oxidative stress, which is a mechanism of cell damage and DNA damage. The nitrates and nitrites that are used to preserve these meats and prevent botulism also get converted in the gut to nitrosamines, which again are carcinogenic. When you heat meat, and including poultry, you generate heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which again are carcinogenic. And of course, we know that they're devoid of all the nutrients we need to protect ourselves, so that's fibre, antioxidants, and all the other phytochemicals. And coming back to the issue of organic versus non-organic food, we also know that the pesticides and herbicides that are used in farming have also been classified as group 2 carcinogens, so probably cause cancer. So these include malathion, diazinone, and glyphosate, which in laboratory models certainly contribute to non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and that's now what we're seeing in the observational studies as well. So it's not to say one should forego fruit and vegetables for worrying about herbicides and pesticides use, but if you do have the ability to make choices, I think it is, using the precautionary principle, it is good to try and choose organic. If you can't always buy organic, it's worth looking up the Dirty Dozen list and the Clean 15, telling you which particular fruits and vegetables are particularly high in pesticides. And this is produced by the Environmental Working Group in the US. And then another mechanism by which diet influences our cancer risk is through the microbiome. And I'd encourage you to read this review article that's just been published. It highlights the impact of our microbiome on our risk of developing cancer, but also how it influences the response to cancer therapies and also our risk of toxicities. So our diet can either promote healthy bacteria and diverse bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids that will protect the gut lining, or it can promote bacteria that will create toxic substances like secondary bile acids. Secondary bile acids, I should say. And here you can see that when you look at the microbial metabolites that are being cited, our fibre-rich plant foods are creating short-chain fatty acids, whereas red meat, processed meats are creating these N-nitroso compounds I talked about, and these secondary bile acids, which are adversely affecting the gut lining and impairing the function of the immune cells. So another key mechanism that drives cancer is through the production of growth hormones that then create the right environment for cells to divide and grow. And we know that IGF-1 is very important, and we discovered this partly through a group of individuals with Laron syndrome that have very low levels of IGF-1 due to a mutation in growth hormone receptor. And along with dwarfism, they have a very low rate of cancer, virtually unheard of. And when we look at cohorts of individuals, and this is one from America, about 7,000 people followed for 18 years, what they found was that our diet was able to influence the IGF-1 levels in the blood, and those people that ate the most animal protein had the higher levels of IGF-1 and the highest levels of cancer, 4 times the increased risk if you were eating a diet that was composed of more than 20% animal protein. And we know that diet lowers or influences our IGF-1 level because those on a vegan diet or a plant-based diet have a much lower level of IGF-1 when you compare it to other diet patterns like just a low-calorie diet or a typical Western diet. And you can change the IGF-1 levels in your blood pretty quickly. This was a study that looked at overweight middle-aged men, put them on a plant-based diet, and after 11 days only, there was a significant reduction in the IGF-1 levels. And when they took the blood from these individuals and dripped them on prostate cancer cells in the laboratory, after 11 days, the blood was able to inhibit the growth of these prostate cancer cells. And we've heard about Dean Ornish, who's done some seminal work in the field of lifestyle interventions to prevent chronic disease. And this study, he put 30 men with early-stage prostate cancer on a whole food plant-based diet. He took a biopsy of their prostate before the intervention and then 3 months after. And what he was able to show here on the right-hand panel is that there was a change in the expression of a whole host of genes after the intervention. So here you can see more red, and here on the right after the intervention more green, and on the right after the intervention there was expression of genes involved in tumour suppression and downregulation of oncogenes. And in the left-hand panel, these same people had an increase in the length of their telomeres, so the caps at the end of the chromosomes, which was detected in the peripheral blood mononuclear cells. And as far as I know, this is about the only therapy that's been shown to elongate our telomeres. So just to briefly cover dairy, dairy is also implicated in cancer promotion, although the strength of evidence is not quite as strong as for red and processed meat. But the strongest evidence is with its link with prostate cancer. And this has been shown in several meta-analyses that the more dairy that's consumed, the higher the risk of prostate cancer. And it makes sense when you understand what is in dairy and the mechanisms that might be at play. We're ingesting estrogens from a pregnant cow. We're ingesting pesticides because they accumulate in the fatty tissue of animals. There's the bovine growth hormone. There's the casein protein, the main protein in milk that has been shown in the laboratory at least to drive cancer growth. Saturated fat, the jury's out a little bit, but it certainly contributes to overweight and obesity. Galactose is the breakdown sugar from lactose, and that's been implicated in the pathogenesis of ovarian cancer. And of course, it contributes to a rise in IGF-1 levels as well. So just moving away from diet, we know that exercise is really important, and the mechanisms by which exercise can reduce our risk of cancer is by helping to maintain a healthful weight, reducing levels of insulin, insulin-like growth factor and insulin resistance, reducing estrogen levels, and again reducing inflammation and enhancing our immune function. And that also the case that it can help prevent cancer recurrence as well. And so there's 13 different cancers that can the risk can be reduced if you do regular exercise, which the recommended amount is 150 minutes in a week of sort of moderate activity. And yeah, coming on to alcohol. When it comes to cancer prevention, there is no safe limit. Alcohol is a carcinogen. The breakdown product of acetaldehyde is toxic to cells, and also alcohol increases the hormone levels of estrogen and insulin in the blood, and it causes about 8% of all breast cancers, for example. And I think when it comes to using alcohol and thinking that it might be helpful, I think one has to weigh up what risks one's trying to mitigate. And if you're already on a whole food plant-based diet, I don't see the indication to add alcohol to that, because it definitely will increase your risk, albeit a small amount, for all these cancers. So have plant-based diets been used in cancer treatment? Well, the answer is yes, and Dean Ornish did this groundbreaking study where he put 93 men with early stages of prostate cancer onto a whole food plant-based diet, plus stress-relieving activities and regular exercise. And after a year, he was able to show that in the intervention group, the prostate-specific antigen level had gone down, whereas in the control group, the PSA had gone up. And small numbers, I agree, but what matters is the hard outcomes. And at 2-year follow-up, 27% of the control group had to go on and have conventional treatments, which included surgery and radiotherapy, whereas only 5% of the lifestyle group had to undergo these conventional treatments. But one has to note that randomized studies in nutrition only work when you provide the food, and these people had food delivered to them 3 times a day. And when you took their blood after a year and put them over prostate cancer cells in the laboratory, what he was able to show is that there was a 70% reduction in the prostate cancer growth after 1 year, and that was compared to the 9% inhibition before the start of the intervention. And the ability of the blood to inhibit the prostate cancer cell growth was dependent on how adherent they were to the diet. So there's a stepwise increase in the anti-cancer ability of the intervention as people were more adherent to the intervention. And a similar thing has been shown in breast cancer. So the Women's Health Initiative, which was one of the most expensive nutrition studies ever conducted, that put postmenopausal women onto either a low-fat diet, high in whole grains and fruits and vegetables, or the conventional, their own control diet. And it should be noted that actually the intervention group never reached the target of the low fat, which was meant to be 20%. But nonetheless, in those that did get breast cancer, if they were on the intervention diet, which was lower in fat and higher in whole grains and fruit and vegetables, they had a increased chance of surviving after their diagnosis compared to the control group. And this has just been published regarding diet quality in those with colorectal cancer. So if you look at diets of people with colorectal cancer before and after their diagnosis, they do better and have less recurrence and live longer if, as the conclusion says, the dietary pattern is high in plant foods and low in animal foods. So it does matter, even after a diagnosis of cancer, you can alter your outcomes positively through diet choices. So how should we be protecting ourselves against cancer? So what we've been talking about today is a whole food plant-based diet made up of fruits, whole grains, legumes and vegetables. And we've heard about all the reasons why. It's because the plant foods are full of nutrients that combat all the main mechanisms of chronic disease, whereas the opposite is true with all the animal foods, which are high in the heme iron, the cholesterol, the chemical contaminants and the bacterial toxins. Fibre is really important. We've heard about this all day, and to say that doubling your fibre intake from 20 grams to 40 grams a day can halve your risk of colon cancer, plus protect against other chronic diseases. And whole grains are also protected against cancer, partly because of the fibre, but also because of the phytate content, which has anti-cancer properties. And beans are also protected. The PREDIMED study is known mainly for its outcomes on cardiovascular health, but actually as a secondary outcome, it was able to show that those that consumed the most beans also had reduced cancer mortality. And there's always confusion over soya bean, but the weight of the evidence supports this as a healthy inclusion in the diet. It's protective for breast cancer, it's protective for prostate cancer, so there really is no confusion anymore. And this is just an example of one of the studies of prostate cancer showing that the more soy milk consumed in this cohort, which was from the Adventist Health Study, the lower the risk of prostate cancer in them. Fruits and vegetables, again, have been shown to reduce our risk of cancer, and really the most protective amount of fruits and vegetables to eat is around 500 to 600 grams, which is getting up to the 9-10 portions a day. And the particular fruits and vegetables that are high in anti-cancer properties are those red-coloured ones, which are high in lycopene, the cruciferous with the isopyrocyanates. We've heard about berries and their antioxidant potential, and allium family that's high in organosulfur compounds. And we actually know how these compounds work. So cruciferous vegetables converted into indoles in the stomach, and when it gets to the gut, it binds to the RL hydrocarbon receptor on these intraepithelial lymphocytes and activates the lymphocytes and promotes their immune function in the gut. As John pointed out, we should be eating plenty of herbs and spices, and turmeric, or the curcumin within turmeric, is the king or queen of spices when it comes to cancer prevention, and it's been used clinically in early stages of colon polyps, and also the strongest data comes from early stages of myeloma. But certainly there's no harm in adding it to the diet, and it certainly has antioxidants that will contribute to cancer prevention. Flax seeds also are high in phytoestrogens, which again have cancer protective properties and have been tested in randomized studies of prostate cancer and breast cancer patients. And nuts have also had benefits in clinical studies. So I said don't drink alcohol. So what are we recommending for drinks? Well, eat Lancet and the Canadian guidelines, etc. all say water prefers. But teas and coffees are healthful and have been implicated in helping to prevent cancer. So coffee consumption is linked with a lower risk of liver and endometrial cancer, and green tea has a number of healthful properties through the consumption of the polyphenol EGC. And here you can see that some of these compounds that we're eating and drinking can act at all stages of cancer development, initiation, promotion and progression, and there's multiple mechanisms. So international consensus comes together with all these information and data from prospective cohort studies and mechanistic studies, and advises us what to do to prevent cancer. And these are the recommendations. When it comes to diet, it's what we've been talking about all day. Eat a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, fruits and beans. It can't be clearer than this. This is the World Authority on Cancer Prevention. In addition, be a healthful weight, be physically active, limit consumption of fast food. That's because of its role in promoting obesity, but also I've suggested that processed food can contribute to cancer development. Limit, I would suggest, avoid red and processed meat. Limit consumption of sugar, sweetened beverages, that's because of its link with obesity. Limit alcohol. Do not use supplements. And whenever I post this online, everyone has a problem with the fact that it says do not use supplements. And it means that if you have a nutritionally complete diet, adding a supplement is not going to add to the cancer protective effects of a healthy diet. And there are cases that have already been pointed out, such as trials in vitamin A, E and selenium that have actually had a detrimental effect on health. Obviously, if you're on a plant-based diet, you need a reliable source of B12, which is often in supplement form. Breastfeed if you're a mother, and that's because it has benefits for the mother and the baby. And after a diagnosis of cancer, it says follow these same recommendations for exactly the same reasons. So, in summary, I hope I've convinced you that a large proportion of cancers are preventable, that diet and lifestyle really is contributing greatly to our high risk of cancer, and that plant-based diets with other healthy lifestyle interventions can decrease the risk of getting cancer, and can also help promote cancer remission and survival after a diagnosis of cancer. Thank you.